The following program is a podcast1.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the mean streets of Los Angeles, California today. I'm over here at 317 Gimmick Street, right next door to my crib. The remodel continues. Right now, they're in there working on my bathroom, putting some of the tiles in. Somebody's out there cutting something in the front yard, so if you can hear that damn skill saw, buzz saw, table saw, seesaw, whatever the hell it is, it's making a lot of racket. I have turned the small bedroom into this rental house into my podcasting room. I'm going to go, as soon as I got finished, I'm going to go buy a piece of carpet or a rug right after I finish the open, the close, and the reads for this podcast. Y'all heard the story last time I went to Home Depot and bought that little piece of crap thing that I did. It was slipping all over the place. My wife took it to Home Depot with the receipt and turned it back in, returned it, whatever you call it. So we're fixing to go to 2 locations. We're going to finally get a damn rug so this room ain't got no bounce using the damn hardwood floors and all these walls in here. I'm actually going to put a couple of my neon signs in here so I got a little bit of atmosphere and creative space. Get me a table, and then I'll be ready to rock and roll. And then once we get the remodel done at 316 Gimmick Street, where I normally conduct my podcast there in the office, I'm going to kind of go back with I don't want to say a studio, but a proper recording area. So I'll have some cool signs and some stuff up, and when people come over, it'll be pretty badass. Nonetheless, that's about 2.5 months down the road. So all the remodels continue, but everything's going good, and they're finally starting to do some cleanup work. They're through with all the basic structural work. They're putting, new trim on the doors and all that stuff today, and they're doing the last door. And it's coming along just fine. So anyway, enough of that stuff. I'll tell you what, man. Last week, WWE was at the Staples Center down here in Los Angeles, California. I went down there to conduct a podcast with Kevin Owens. And I got on my Google alerts, and they said, hey, The Rock and Stone Cold were down there behind the scenes at Monday Night Raw. Rock was actually filming a movie that he's working on. I guess it's a documentary on Page. And I was down there because 2K Sports set me up, the people that make all the badass video games for WWE and many other people. They set up a conversation for myself and Kevin Owens. So I wasn't down at the Staples Center just lollygagging around, coming to see the guys and girls and shake their hands and say hello because they didn't have anything else to do. I went down there specifically to talk with the Universal Champion of WWE, the one and only KO Kevin Owens. I was looking forward to talking to this kid because I like what he does in the ring. He's got a gift for gab, and he's a good cat. So that's what I was doing down there. There was so much speculation. Hey, is he going to show up at WrestleMania 33? They're going to get him involved in the storyline? Was he just down there saying hello to his friends? Yeah, I was saying hello to some of my friends, but the first business at hand was to talk to Kevin Owens, shoot the breeze, and get a podcast in. Me and Kevin were sitting in this little bitty ass room. God dang, it was a small room. Confines were tight. We finished the podcast, and I started saying goodbye to everybody, and then a damn run into someone, and there was a television monitor right there. And I was looking at the monitor, and they had it pointed at the ring, right there in the Staples Center, at the ring setup. A lot of guys and girls were out there, and I said, God dang, man, I got to go say hi to these guys and that guy and that girl. So I walked down there, and I was trying to get out of there early, but I got a chance to talk with so many people and shake everybody's hands that one thing led to another. I was over there cutting up with Big Cass and Enzo Amore, and got a chance to catch up with Bailey and Charlotte, and god dang, Gallows and Carl Anderson. So I had a good time. Jesus Christ, I think I talked about everybody there. Got a chance to run into Triple H, talk to the Big Show. Anyway, man, I tell you what, it's always good to roll in there and see everybody. But I tell you what, man, a television taping, if you ever think that you're going down to a TV taping just to visit with people, it's a bad time to go because, man, these guys and girls are coming off the road. They're rolling into television. They got to be full-on 100% live performance. So, they ain't got time to just sit there and shoot the breeze and do all that other stuff. It's business, and it's business executed at the highest level. So anyway, just seeing those guys and girls go through the grind, go through the paces, it was, when you step back from it, as long as I've been away from it, you forget how hot and heavy and how hectic it is and the road life. People always ask me, man, what do you miss most or what do you miss the least? Well, you miss the crowd. You miss the guys and girls that you travel with, the boys. That's what you miss. The paychecks are great too. What you don't miss, or what I don't miss now that I've turned back into a civilian, is all the travel. Just plane rides here, car rides there, bus, whatever you're doing. It is a hell of a damn way to make a living. And I stress to people every time someone asks me about how that job was, man, it's the best job I ever had in my life. Absolutely, hands down. But I always tell people, I finish up with this sentence, I'll say, it's the funnest job I ever had, but it's the hardest job I ever had as well, because you will work your ass off in and out of that ring, driving up and down those roads. But anyway, on to my conversation with the WWE Universal Champion, Kevin Owens. Y'all remember when he busted out the Stone Cold Stunner at the Royal Rumble when he was wrestling Roman Reigns? God dang, he was over in the corner. Roman charges in with the spear. KO catches him with a high knee, kind of catches Roman right around his eye. And then, wham, hits him with a Stone Cold Stunner right out of the middle of nowhere. He was trying to use everything but the kitchen sink to put away Roman Reigns. And I'll be damned if Roman Reigns didn't kick out at about 2 3/4. What I explained to Kevin Owens was, God dang, dude, as smart as you are, as smart as I've known this kid to be, long time ago, saw him in an airport, kid, work on your promos, never stop running your mouth. Boy, he's a silver-tongued devil, and he's a working son of a gun. But I said, as smart as you are, I would have figured you would have done a little bit more research on the delivery mechanism, the strategic process of delivering a Stone Cold Stunner, or at the very least, calling me and asking me, hey, Steve, you got any tips on using that Stone Cold Stunner? Because we've seen people use it in the past, never using it effectively, because there's actually a few secrets to the Stone Cold Stunner, and that's part of my conversation. You'll hear about the strategic process, about the setup, kick to the gut, the chain reaction of events that transpires during the split second of momentous impact once my AC joint collarbone traps meets the underside of someone else's jaw. It's called a Stone Cold Stunner, and I break it down in scientific fashion with Kevin Owens. It's a great conversation. It was good talking to him. He's heading in March the 5th. Hell of a damn pay-per-view. Fastlane, whatever it's called. Right before they go to WrestleMania. And he's got Goldberg versus Kevin Owens for the Universal Championship. It'll be interesting to see how this match goes down. We talk a little bit about that. We talk about the 2K17 video game. And since this was done last week, right before Monday Night Raw, or maybe right after the one before, the recent Festival of Friendship with Chris Jericho, we talk about that. That was a great piece of business that I really enjoyed. So anyway, we're going to talk psychology, bumps, and the indie scene before KO got to the major leagues, WWE. But before we get to KO, let me take care of one of the sponsors who's doing their part in the fight against air pollution, and that's Hanes with Fresh IQ. Underwear is important to us all, and at the end of a long day, our socks, undershirts, and underwear start to develop a certain, let's call it aroma. No, let's go one more. Let's call it funk. And we all suffer from the funk from time to time. It happens to everyone. I don't care who you are. It's a fact of life. So that's why Hanes invented Fresh IQ advanced odor protection technology. Hanes with Fresh IQ attacks bacteria and keeps fabric from absorbing the funk and other unpleasant aromas. That means your socks, t-shirts, and boxers smell fresher longer. So forget smartwatches and fitness trackers. This is the latest and greatest in wearable tech, the unwearable wonder of odor-controlling Hanes with Fresh IQ advanced odor protection technology. Wow. And right now, you can get 25% off your purchase of Hanes with Fresh IQ products. Just use the promo code FRESHAUSTIN. Some exclusions apply. So replace your old ratty boxer briefs, your yellow t-shirts, your mismatched socks. There's never been a better time to upgrade your obsolete undergarments with all new Fresh IQ socks, shirts, and underwear from Hanes, America's #1 underwear. Just go to Hanes.com. Use the promo code FRESHAUSTIN to get 25% off your order of Hanes with Fresh IQ. Hanes with Fresh IQ advanced odor protection technology, the smart way to stay fresh. Everybody's got a to-do list. Drop off at dry cleaning, pick up some milk. Here's an idea. Let's save hundreds of dollars on car insurance. And the good thing is you don't have to drop off or pick up anything. All you have to do is go to geico.com, and in 15 minutes, you could be saving 15% or more on car insurance. Extra money in your pocket? It just may be the most rewarding to-do you do today.
So far in 2017, Forbes and Podcast One have already launched 3 highly acclaimed shows. The Interview with Steve Bertoni features the business world's most interesting names, like Adam Carolla, Twitter founder Sean Rad, and Hollywood's own Jessica Alba.
So I spent a lot of my childhood in hospital beds.
Under 30 with Steve Goldblum talks to the movers and shakers, like Nation Builder CEO Jim Gilliam and NFL big game winner Martellus Bennett.
Guys are afraid to be themselves because of their marketing deals.
And The List with Art of Charms Jordan Harbinger.
We'll get behind-the-scenes insight and information that doesn't make the print cut.
Next up, Sports Money with Mike Ozanian talking to team owners, athletes, and industry leaders about the enterprise and money behind supreme athletic competition. Forbes on Podcast One. Not just entertaining, informative. Subscribe now at iTunes, and don't forget to rate, review, and share. The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
All right, Steve Austin. I'm sitting here at Staples Center, trapped in a room. Right now, I got my eyes locked on the beady eyes of one Kevin Owens, Universal Champion here in WWE. We're in tight confines. Kevin, welcome to the show. How would you describe the setting, the room that we're in? Because it might get tense in here. It's so small.
Well, the current setting, if it does get tense, as you just put it, I guess it's quite appropriate. There's a ladder behind you. There's some Christmas lights over in the corner. There's a lamp there. A couple frames of people playing basketball. I think we could
There's a clock on the wall. We could time the festivities. There's a mirror over here in case that comes into play.
Yeah,
and of course, there's a picture of the Stanley Cup. You're from Canada.
Yes.
Are you a hockey fan?
I'm about to blow your mind when I say not at all. I am one of the few Canadian men who doesn't obsess over hockey. The reason for that is I used to play hockey when I was a teenager, and then I discovered wrestling and dropped everything else. I played till I was 13, and then I decided I wanted to train to be a wrestler, and I didn't have time for hockey anymore, so that was it.
Okay, so now you're from Canada.
That's
you live
right.
here in the States right now, right?
No, I live back in Montreal. I lived in Orlando for about 10 months while I was in NXT, and the second Triple H told me I was getting called up to Raw, my first question was, can I move back home? And he said yes, so a month later we were back in Montreal.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I was just assuming, wrongly of course, that you live in the United States of America. That one time I talked to you a couple years ago, you were in the States then, weren't you?
No, I lived in Montreal. I was in the same house that I'm in now, actually.
Good for you. So you're not blowing all this damn championship, your money. You're not blowing all your championship money you're earning as a Universal Champion.
No, I'm saving it as much as I can in Montreal and making sure that I have it for the future.
Okay, not a hockey fan.
No.
Any kind of sports fan? UFC? Anything?
I really can't say that I am. I mean, I used to watch UFC when Brock would fight, and then when he stopped fighting, I stopped watching. As far as other sports, like I said, I played plenty of sports when I was a kid: soccer, baseball, hockey. But then when I discovered wrestling, that was it. I just didn't care about anything else, and I just went in head first, 100%, and pretty much became obsessed.
So you're on the road a bunch these days, traveling with the WWE. Mm-hmm. You guys been super busy. I know you're on the road here. Where'd you just come from?
We were in Long Beach last night. We were in Alaska last week. I
heard about Alaska.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, my brother was in the Coast Guard stationed in Kodiak for 2 tours over there, and everyone over there to visit him. I heard it was colder than hell over in Anchorage.
Well, In Anchorage, it wasn't too bad. I actually kind of felt like Canada to me.
Really?
Yeah. I took a helicopter tour around like the glaciers and the mountains. That was awesome.
Did you set that up yourself?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, that was great. And but Fairbanks, the next day was really cold, like minus 40 or whatever. It was pretty bad. But like I said, being from Canada, I guess, it wasn't that bad to me.
Okay,
the rest of the boys were bitching a lot, but I wasn't too
I was talking to
bothered.
Anderson Gallows before you happened up.
Yeah.
I guess they must have been referring to Fairbanks. They said it was colder than here.
Yeah, Fairbanks was something else. And I was actually walking with them out of the airport. As soon as we stepped foot out the airport, oh my God.
Y'all's bus was late, and you're like, holy smokes, where's the ride?
Exactly. There was no ride. They were freaking out.
So tell me something. Is this the adventure mode of Kevin Owens? You like to get up in the helicopters and take tours of places? Or due to this condescending attitude you seem to possess every time you hit a WWE squared circle, did you just want to look down on everybody?
It was a little bit of both. But the thing is, when you're in a helicopter over mountains and glaciers and whatnot, there's really nobody to look down on. It's empty. But I saw a couple moose out there. That was pretty good. And we actually landed on a glacier, and I walked around, and just how quiet it is. There's no sound. There's no civilization anywhere. There's nobody to bother. It's really something. It was an incredible experience, and I'd really I can't put it over enough. I remember when I was in the helicopter and just going over one specific part where you just see the glaciers are like this crazy color. It's like so pure blue. Like you can't even. I thought like this is the greatest experience of my life, like that I've ever done. I've been all over the world. I've seen really cool stuff, but that was by far the top of the list. If you have the chance to do it one day, I think you should. I know, Alaska, it's pretty cold. You're not exactly from that kind of climate, but it's really something.
I don't see myself just, flying down to Alaska so I can do a helicopter tour, but if I ever get down there, I will. I remember one time back when I was doing some personal appearances, back when I was still in the business, you could still fly over New York City, and this is before 9/11, and God dang, man, I'd been doing 3 personal appearances. We helicoptered each one of them, and we were running early. And this was one of those, like, big-ass helicopters, not like an R-44. It was a big-ass helicopter. And it looked like a limousine inside.
Okay.
Probably something similar to what you guys were in.
We were actually in a tiny
helicopter. This is badass. I could have had a bunch of people with me, and I was running solo. I didn't have no posse, so I was up there by myself. And the guy said, "Steve, we're running early. You want us to give you a buzz of the city?" I said, hell yeah.
That must be pretty crazy.
I just needed a 6-pack of beer to really enjoy it, but I really dug it. Going back to you, so these times when you go to special places, I mean, like back in the day, I went to Chicago to the Shed Museum. I saw the King Tut thing. Had to get one of those gimmicks for the house, all that stuff. Do you do this every time you go somewhere, or just when
I really don't actually. Everybody who knows me will tell you that unless I have personal appearances set up by the company or the shows, I just bury myself in my room with my iPad. I watch The Office. For some reason, that's the only TV show I watch, even though I've seen it 100 times.
Hold on. One of the most despicable men on television today. I speak fondly of you.
Thank you.
Universal Champion, and you're watching The Office.
I do.
In your hotel room. What is it about The Office? You ain't watching football. You ain't watching UFC. You ain't watching hockey.
Well, if I'm not watching wrestling, I'm watching The Office because it brings me a sense of comfort from home. And I'll be, I've said this many times, and anybody who knows me will tell you that my wife and my kids are everything. So when I'm not with them, I long for that feeling of home. So that's what I do. I sleep as much as I can to kind of make the time go by faster. And Alaska was just one of those places where I thought it's the first time I'm going, and I may never go again. Yeah. I have to see that. And I've done it a couple places. When I was in Rome or Australia, I've actually tried to get out and see some of those places. But most countries we go to, especially if I've been more than once, the only thing I see is my hotel room door closing behind me, and then I'm happy. All I need is those 4 walls and the bed.
You just came from Alaska. Did you get a chance to go home, or how long have you been on the road up until now?
Actually, I did get a chance. We did Alaska last Saturday and Sunday, and then we flew to Vegas for Raw. And then I went home for a couple days, and I got back out. The whole crew got back out Friday, Saturday, but I had commitments back home, so I got back out Sunday. We did Long Beach yesterday. The more it gets, the more time away from home is usually the European tours, because those are like 2 full weeks.
So, dude, I love working over in Germany. I like working in the UK. The crowd's always hot. It's because we hadn't been there in so long, so the crowd's always hot. Do you dig it over there? Or do you not like going over there? How you like it?
I mean, I dig working in front of all the crowds that only see us a couple times a year. Obviously, the UK, Germany, or anywhere else. Japan. We went to Singapore 2 years ago. We're going back this year, I think. And
how was that?
That was incredible, especially considering it was my first. It was my first international tour on the main roster, and I was working Cena in the main event. You know what I mean? And
good gig.
It's not a bad way to start. And also, what I remember from that particular show in Singapore was, I was pretty new. It was in, I believe, July, and I started in May, just a month and a half before. But when I got there, that entire arena knew exactly who I was, probably from NXT and stuff like that. It was really cool to see how strongly they responded to me. And, John always has that dynamic of, let's go, Cena sucks.
Yeah.
So it was really split 50-50. Like, some of them, like 50% loved Cena, but 50% were on my side. And that, I've always said this, you got to get heat, you got to get, you got to be a heel, you got to be this, you got to be that. But to me, the optimum reaction is when you get a lot of people that like you and a lot of people that hate you, and then they meet in the middle. Like John has or Roman has these days. Like, that's the reaction I aspire to get one day, because I find that clash is so interesting.
Well, what I find about it, from stepping back all the years that I've been in the business and watching the business, is that crowd is on fire. There's electricity going on. I mean, there's let's go back to Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
That was a great card.
Yeah.
You had a great match with Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
And then Cena gets out there, it's a whole different level of electricity.
Because they're competing with each other.
I know, but my point is, I mean, whether people love him or they love to hate him, they're engaged.
Yeah, they're engaged. Also, because I feel like I said, they're competing with the other people.
Right.
They see this guy saying, let's go Cena. Hell no. Let's go. Cena sucks. You know what I mean? And that's, like, they create a competition within themselves, and it makes for a very interesting, like, time. Everybody's always engaged.
For me, because when you got a hot crowd, it makes it so much easier to relax and enjoy the match and take those people on a hell of a ride.
Yep.
It's all about crowd participation. Talk about being on the road. And now that you've been in the system full time for, Jesus Christ, when's the last time we talked? 3 years ago?
3 years ago. It was December of 2013, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been in the grind for a long time now. You dig the road. You tired of the road. You know, one thing that you can't ever tell the old man is, Vince, I'm just feeling a little burned out. Yeah. You never, ever do that. So I'm not saying you're going to say that. Answer me and tell me how you like being on the road and how you feel.
I would never say
to stay healthy.
Yeah, I would never say that, because I don't ever see that happening, simply from the fact that before I got here, I was on the road for 3-4 days a week already for 3, 4, 5 years on the indies. I started.
You were that busy?
Yeah, I started wrestling. I had my first match on my 16th birthday, and I didn't get that busy right away. Obviously, it took me a while to work up to it. But about 10 years in, by 2010, 2011, I was working 3-4 times a week, every week. So, and as great as my time on the independents was, and as much as I enjoyed myself, and as crucial as it was for me to get here, I feel. I was really ready for it to be done. Like, I always wanted to be in WWE. So now that I am, it's funny because I kind of had this talk with somebody last week in Alaska when we showed up in Fairbanks, and the bus that was supposed to pick us up wasn't there for some reason. And we had to take cabs, and we had to wait for 10 minutes in the blistering cold. The next day, someone that shall remain nameless at the show was kind of complaining about it in the trainer's room. And I saw his point, or her point, I don't want to. But I said, look, if I came to Alaska for an indie show, I would have been dragging my giant suitcase full of merch, everything, and there wouldn't have been a bus anyway. I would have had to hop in somebody's car that's too small, that doesn't have heating, and he would have driven me to his place, and I would have slept on his couch or in his basement, somebody I don't know. Like, this is nothing. Who cares? We have to wait 10 minutes in the cold and catch a cab. You know what I mean? Like, now we're wrestling in front of thousands of people, and we're taking a charter back to Vegas. Like, you know what I mean? So to me, that's nothing. And, I'm not saying that, I feel like if you've been around on the indies and stuff, the road is just a very easy sacrifice to make in order to live this life and achieve this dream. Like, it sounds corny as hell.
No, man. The road is the fun.
It is
the
fun.
TVs are tough. I mean, they're fun. I mean, for me, back when I used to roll up, man, I mean, I'd be like, it's almost therapy for me. It was therapeutic.
Yeah.
Okay, what kind of shit can I tear up this Monday?
Yeah.
And they'll run some stuff by me. I say, okay. I said, no, let's do something else. And so it was always fun. But, that's when you put the work in, and that's when you got to be dialed in and zoned in. I just got finished watching the Monday Night Raw last night that y'all did last week when you attacked Jericho. We'd like to get into that in just a minute. But, when you get to do something like that, you got to be on. And that thing was just executed to sheer perfection. Love the camera shots. But that's the fun part of it, but it's the work of it. And in the road, go to the house shows, and that's when you have fun and you try out different things. You experiment a little bit, or you try to perfect certain things, and you try maybe a different level of psychology, work something different. You get a chance to experiment and have fun. But, to me, the road was easy just because I'm probably very much the same as you. Just love being in the ring. There's no better smell than laying on that mat after a bump or giving someone a bump or a cover and just smelling that mat and just, it's wrestling. It's sports entertainment.
There really is no better feeling, this side of getting married and having kids than 1, 2, 3 and hearing the crowd give you the exact reaction you were working for the whole time. Right. I really can't put that into words. The satisfaction and sense of accomplishment that we get from that, right? But even beyond the ring, those 15, 20, 30 minutes I spend in the ring are that's the reason why we make the sacrifice of being away from our families and stuff like that. Obviously, the money and being able to secure their future is a big part of it, but the passion that I have for this, but part of it is, part of the enjoyment really is, sometimes the best part of the night is getting in the car with the boys and driving to the next town and talking about what happened at the show, what happened the night before, what's going to happen on Raw, what are we doing, what are you doing, how can we make this better? And that's something that I get a great deal of enjoyment from. How can we make the house shows better? How can we make the TV better? How can we make what we're doing better? How can we help other people make it better? That's a big part of just being passionate about what we do too, and it's a part of it. Look, I really enjoy every aspect of this business. As hard as the road can be, like I said, the only negative it really is being away from your family. Because once I get here, I'm so zoned in on everything I'm doing and trying to make this place as good as I can. And you and I have had conversations when I first got up here, and you give me advice on how to go about things, and just like all that kind of stuff always stays in my head. And then I share it with the guys I'm close with, and it's just it's a great feeling to be in a position where we feel like we can try to help make the show better, and whether it's in the ring or outside of the ring, just everything from being on the road and being part of the shows is just so it's just everything I've always waited for, really.
Okay, well, let's talk about the career you had on the indie scene before you landed in the big leagues in WWE. But before we do that, I need to take a minute here to thank another fine sponsor of the Steve Austin podcast, Loot Crate. And they're part of the greatest tag team in crate history, the WWE Slam Crate. It's a bi-monthly mystery subscription service for fans of the WWE Universe. And the third crate is ready to order now. This one is all about the road to WrestleMania, and it celebrates the superstars who live, eat, breathe, and sleep this journey. And I'm not just talking about the stars who'll be in the squared circle on April 2nd in Orlando, Florida. I'm talking about past WrestleMania stars, too. And that's why this crate is loaded with exclusive items featuring The Rock, Seth Rollins, Charlotte, and many other WWE superstars. There's also an authentic T-shirt that you can't get anywhere else. So sign up at lootcrate.com/Austin by March 19th at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or you'll miss it and regret it. So go to lootcrate.com/Austin and use the promo code Austin at checkout to get $3 off your Road to WrestleMania Slam Crate now. That's LOOT crate.com/Steve Austin and use the promo code Austin to save $3. But do it now, because once that March 19th deadline passes, so does your chance to get this crate. Order now at lootcrate.com/Austin. If you're in the market for a car, then you need to check out TrueCar.com and the TrueCar app. TrueCar gives you the price and information you need to feel confident about your purchase. When you register with TrueCar, you'll see what other people in your local market paid for the car you want. From there, you can connect with a local TrueCar certified dealer and enjoy a more confident car buying experience. TrueCar shows you real pricing on actual inventory, so you see competitive pricing offered to you by TrueCar certified dealers for vehicles that are actually on their lots. TrueCar makes car buying easy. No matter if you're looking for a brand new or used vehicle, there are over 500,000 pre-owned vehicles available from TrueCar certified dealers nationwide. And there are over 13,000 TrueCar certified dealers. And over 2 million cars have been sold to TrueCar users by the TrueCar certified dealer network. TrueCar users save an average of over $3,000 off MSRP. So when you're ready to buy a new or used car, visit TrueCar.com or download the TrueCar app to enjoy a better car buying experience. Some features not available in all states.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
I got 2 questions. I want to ask you this first. I'm not asking for dollar signs, but out there on the indie circuit, when you're working 3 or 4 times a week and then you're going home and you repeat the process, did that for many years. As you're finally here, things are more steady here. You got a pretty good sense of what you're going to make, depending on the houses, but the money's better.
Yeah.
Put it that way. How hard was it to survive on the indie scene with a wife and now 2 kids?
Yeah, well, I was on the indies. I only had one. I had my son. And then right when I signed, like a couple months before, my daughter was born in April of 2014, and I started with WWE in August of 2014. So she came along right at the end of my indie days, but I already knew I was coming to WWE when she was born. So I was supporting my wife and our son. It wasn't easy. Like for the first 10 years, I worked another job Monday to Thursday. I worked at a gas station for a long time, for 7 years, and then my wife got pregnant, so I felt like I needed a better job. I moved to a warehouse. I was working we're in the Staples Center. I was working in a Staples warehouse for about 4 years, and then they were very accommodating of my schedule. They knew I wanted to be a wrestler, this and that. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'd have off. I'd come back Monday. But we definitely weren't rich. Like at one time, I got my heating cut off because I couldn't pay it.
Yeah.
Just my wife called me. I remember I was at my parents' doing something. My wife called me. She's like, they just came to shut the heating off. I'm like, well, it's April. We owe this much. There's no way I'll be paying that anytime soon. Thankfully, we live right next to her mom's, so there was no running hot water for months. So we'd have to go take showers at her house. And then, the summer months came, so we didn't need heating. But then by the winter, I had to like scrunch up all the money I could to pay that bill and get it, get it started back up again. So it wasn't easy. But then by 2012 or maybe even 2011, I really started doing better. Like that's when I decided to just completely focus on wrestling. So I dropped the other job. And I just went in 3-4 times. Every booking I could, I would take. I started going back to Europe because when my son was born, I stopped doing overseas altogether because I didn't want to be away from them for that long. But then I figured out, I could probably go Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Europe and still come back Monday. I'm only gone for a couple of days. And Europe was always very, England especially was always very hot for the indies. So it was a great place to make money. So by the time I was in 2011, 2012, I was doing a pretty good I was making a pretty good living, and we weren't rich by any means, but we weren't stressed about money for the first time.
On the indie scene, how is the negotiation process to up the ante and get paid more? I understand the structure. I've always been in a territory system or a big company, going from USWA to WCW, ECW, WWF, so on the indie scene, I'm never asking for numbers, but what is the process? Once you've been around, all of a sudden you're becoming, and you are an established draw on the indie scene. So is it strictly on the house? I mean, well, it's going to be on the house, but what's the process?
So, it's funny because at first when you're trying to get, so like I'll say 2007, 2008, I'm still trying to make my name on the indies. So I'll be working places for a lot cheaper because I'm hoping to get in with them.
Right.
But then by 2012, when I already have the name on the indies and there's a new place I want, like now they're coming to me, first of all, I'm not really asking them. Now I'm charging more than I would if I worked for them regularly. So it's like a switch, you completely flip it upside down. But then, like, I'll give an example. So PWG, I wrestled for in California from 2004 all the way to the end of my indie career. And that place, like the promoter was like my brother, first of all, and he was really the one who took the first shot on me and Sammy. So we never asked him for a raise. We started at $100, and then he would just give us a raise when he felt it was right, and we never asked for more because we were so grateful, and we loved going to PWG. Ring of Honor was kind of the same thing. We started with what they gave us, but then for them, we actually had to ask for a raise once it was time, because we would also have contracts with them. So whenever it was time to renegotiate the contract, we'd ask for a little bit more money, every couple of years, I guess. But then all the other places, like by 2012, I started wrestling in the AIW in Cleveland. And the first time I went there, I didn't know whether I'd ever be back. So to me, it was like, well, it's first time I wrestled for them. I don't know if I will go back there, so this is how much I'm charging. And it was a high price. And they paid it. I went, I enjoyed myself. And they said, well, maybe we could come back. You can come back next month. I'm like, well, if you bring me back more often than that, here's my price. And they're like, oh. And I dropped it significantly because I knew I enjoyed that place, and now I want to go every month. You know, that's kind of how it works. There are some places where I wrestled for the first time for that, and then I'd be like, well, if they want to bring me back, it's still the same price because this isn't really for me, you know. But I'll come back if there's money to be made.
But you were very proactive in the process because there's a lot of guys. I was just talking to a guy who will remain nameless. This is the Unnameless podcast.
Yes.
And he never really picked up the money aspect of it and just, got paid what promoters would pay him. And so I think it's not specific to pro wrestling, but almost in any endeavor. I mean, I think you got minimum wage these days, but, people want to pay anybody to do, as little as possible to do whatever the required task at hand is.
Yeah.
If you don't learn the money in on anything, you're always going to make the same.
Yeah.
But I always try to tell the boys, or the people who listen to podcasts coming up into the business, that it's incumbent upon themselves upon them to learn the business from all facets. When you first get in, you're trying to be a mechanic. You just learn how to do the work in the ring.
Yeah.
Tell a little story, put some psychology in there. But along with that comes the money and everything that goes with it. And that's what being a pro is all about.
You have to know what your worth is.
Exactly.
But with that comes along some delusion for a lot of people.
You are correct, sir.
That is a very it's a very touchy topic for a lot of people.
It's very subjective.
It's very subjective. You have to be realistic. I think a lot of people, even now, I still keep my finger on the pulse of the indies. And, sometimes I'll find stuff out that blows my mind, like, oh, this guy wants this much. Get out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then I'll also hear about guys who work for way too little, in my opinion. Because you know what I mean, you got to know what you're worth, and you got to have you got to have a head on your shoulders, and you have to have common sense, but you have to protect yourself for sure, because there are those people who are going to try to pay you as little as possible to get as much out of you as possible, and that's good for when you're trying to make a name for yourself, but you can't let people take advantage of you either. So.
Okay, you said protect yourself. Let's start talking about bumps and work style out there in the indie scene. Man, last time I talked to you, you had, Jesus Christ, I think there was a video on YouTube. I don't know, you had 50 high-powered moves.
I think it was 95.
95?
That's I know, because it's a quote from that podcast, and my friends to this day still do in your voice. The top 95 moves. They love it.
I only
so
had 3, so you got me beat. My point is, you were doing that obviously because you're trying to get noticed, and they're cool moves. I don't know where you learned them all from, but you're not doing those same 95 moves.
No, not at all. There's a lot of those moves I haven't done in years, in fact.
But is that because you have been noticed? You're Kevin Owens now. You have a head of steam going. Or you're on the road, you've got to work for longevity, you don't need to get noticed, or is it now more about the persona, the gimmick, the personality?
A lot of it is really because throughout those years, first of all, that video you're referring to, the 95 moves, if you look, there's moves, like there's videos for me in 2004 all the way to 2012. So it's over several years. Some of the moves I was doing in 2004, I stopped doing in 2006 because maybe it wasn't me, Now when you're coming up and you're trying to find who you are in a way.
Yes.
I realize that some of that stuff doesn't apply to who I am or who I'm becoming and stuff like that. I wouldn't say I've cut out any move because I'm trying to protect my body, because I don't remember ever doing a specific move that was really hard on myself or anything like that. There are moves I cut out because I want to preserve the health of my opponents.
Right.
Sure, there's definitely those, but there's also a big aspect to it is I like having stuff in my back pocket for when it's time to, time to crank it up or maybe evolve or show a different side of myself. Eventually I'll probably be asked to be a different Kevin Owens, and once that time is there, then I have stuff.
You got an ace up your sleeve.
Exactly. That's a big part of it, I'd say.
Where were you on January 29, 2017, if I may be maybe a detective, so to speak?
Well, throughout the day, I was in San Antonio, Texas.
And throughout the night, you were too.
I was there too. At one point, I was even in the ring.
Yes, you were.
I was.
With a very worthy adversary.
Yeah, a very worthy Roman Reigns. Someone who, in hopes of beating him, you have to throw everything at. You know?
Boy.
Everything but the kitchen sink. You got to put everything you have in, and sometimes maybe even borrow a thing or two from other people.
I would flat say steal, hijack, just plagiarize a move out of the moveset of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Jesus H. Christ, Kevin, I only got 3-4 moves, and 2 of them was each middle finger. Well, and you got to bastardize the Stone Cold Stunner on Roman Reigns? What in the flying duck was going through your mind when you decided to pull out that stunner?
I was trying to win. And where we're in Texas, of all places. What better place than to bust it out? Listen, I came as close to beating Roman Reigns with that stunner as anybody has come close to beating anybody with any move in the last 10 years.
Kevin is
Plus,
clear.
Steve, I got to be honest with you.
Go ahead, be honest. I don't expect you to sit here 3 feet away from me and lie in this enclosed room where anything could go south and then anything could happen.
I remember sitting in a room with you in I don't remember the specific arena, but I remember sitting in a room with you about a year ago and saying, Steve, I'd love to start doing the Stone Cold Stunner if that's okay with you. And I remember the answer being positive. And I didn't do it right away because it didn't feel right. I waited for the right time. And to me, the right time was in San Antonio, Texas, when I'm trying to beat Roman Reigns, one of the toughest men in the history of this business. And obviously, I got to work on it. But I came real close.
Roman Reigns has come a long way. I'm proud of the progress that he's made. His promos are starting to come. He's going to be there. He's going to be a hell of a damn champion one of these days, a hell of a damn WWE superstar. He's still a work in progress. I like what he's done. Very tough opponent. Good-looking kid, great body, powerful, former collegiate football player. He's very athletic. He's charging you. Undoubtedly, he's going for the spear. There's a table in the corner. He's going to spear you through. But no, you catch him with a high knee to the temple and then decide to go ahead and go for the Stone Cold Stunner. Now, as smart as I've always known you to be, when I was studying YouTube videos of you before I talked to you the last time, watched you all these years develop into a top-tier WWE superstar, now the Universal Champion. I don't know how many belts you've had. Intercontinental title, right?
Yeah.
Universal Champion right now. I can't believe you didn't bring the belt so I can look at it here in the podcast. I've never seen anything up close and personal. I just thought, as smart as I thought you were, as smart as I know you are, you would have studied the delivery mechanism, the system to deliver a Stone Cold Stunner.
The boot was
missing. If you wanted to borrow it from me, which you did, dare say I now say steal it, you would have called me on the phone. You got my damn phone number in your phone. Said, hey, Steve, I'm thinking about busting this thing out because I got Roman Reigns. He's tough as nails. I might need it. And I could have explained to you
the mechanics.
What it's more than that. It's the anatomical, the physiological, and the kinesiological aspects that go into performing such a maneuver, Kevin. Now, when you watch it on TV, boom, set up with a gut shot, wham, down you go. But it's much more than that. What were you thinking? Because I want to break it down to you on a scientific and molecular standpoint so you know what the F is going on from here on out.
Well, listen, like I said, you set up the scene perfectly. There's a table behind me. There's a giant Roman Reigns charging at me. I put the knee up by instinct, and then the next thing I knew, I've done so much to this guy, nothing's worked. Wham! As you would say it, here's the stunner. I didn't think of the gut shot. I didn't think of, I did the best I could. It wasn't enough, but hey, maybe I should have called you, but it was just it just happened. It wasn't something I planned. It just came to me. But now we're in the same room together. There's a ring out there. Maybe tonight's the night where you teach me how to do it exactly how I should, so that it becomes a successful one for me.
Let me break this thing down. And you know what? Here I'm gonna give a little. You got. I'm a big football fan. You got Inside the NFL. You got Inside MMA. I'm going to give you Inside the Stone Cold Stunner.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Go ahead.
I feel like if you do that now, other guys might listen and try to start.
No. Ain't nobody back here got the guts to jack my move. Okay, you did.
Hey.
I dig it. You had the guts to go out on a limb. You fell short.
I did.
But you took the effort.
I'd like you to acknowledge, I've said it a couple times, and you haven't given me the gratification of, I did come close. You got to give me that.
Close ain't good enough, brother.
All
When
right.
you got the Universal title on the line, come on, man. Championship gold on the line, and you talking about being close?
Well, I feel like as close as I came, now with your wisdom that you're about to impart me,
Check this out.
it's foolproof.
You've been deep in the well many times
Yes.
in some long physical bouts with any opponent that you could have had. I've seen you have barn burners with a plethora of talents. Plethora, as you know, means a whole bunch of people.
Absolutely. Great
You
word.
can work with anybody on the damn card. Sometimes when you get deep into your oxygen reserves, what happens? You kind of start to lose the thought process. You can't perform up to your utmost ability. Well, see, that's what's the beauty of is when you kick the guy in the gut, right in the diaphragm, boom, you sap his lungs full of all the oxygen. You suck the oxygen right out of his lungs.
see.
All of a sudden, his brain's like, ugh, I need to breathe. I'm about halfway blown up. This is deep in the match.
Right.
I need oxygen.
So that kick isn't just about bending him over a little so that you have easier access to the head.
You're very correct. It is a positioning
more than
mechanism.
But there's more to it.
There's more to
I
it than
see.
positioning.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, you're robbing the lungs of oxygen, precious oxygen, which that heart needs to pump to the cranial region, which houses the brain.
Right.
So all of a sudden, that person doesn't know where to crap or whine or watch because they can't breathe, and then wham! Here's the thing. You didn't really secure Roman's head hard enough on your shoulder because what happens... are you a boxing fan at all? Can you appreciate a great uppercut?
Yes, I can.
Okay, like a Mike Tyson-style uppercut right underneath the jaw.
Right.
You got two holes here in each side of your jaw, the foramen nerves. That's where people get knocked out. So basically, when you grab that head, put it on top of your collarbone, this AC region, your trapezoid, right there in the end of your shoulder, you're locking that jaw down, underneath the jaw. So all of a sudden, I'm like a spring. Okay,
I'm learning
you
right
ever
now.
see someone, okay, so let's say like someone comes in, they weigh 120 pounds, they're going to hit you with an uppercut.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's say someone 250 hits you with an uppercut. Okay?
Yep.
Now let's take double body weight.
Right.
500 pounds, give or take, hitting you with an uppercut. That's both men's weight coming
Right.
down on that shoulder. You hit your ass on the mat. The mat springs you
The
back
rebound.
up.
That's right.
The vertebrae in your back give that energy a direct path through the shoulder to his damn jawbone. Wham! Lights out. That's how scientific it is, Kevin.
See, this is very
You gotta
interesting
do
to
it.
me,
It's a 1,
because-
2, 3-step process.
Well, it's great
destruction on the other end if executed to perfection.
As many times as I've watched you execute a stunner, I've never realized that there was the key to it was grabbing so that your shoulder is right underneath the jawbone. I figured, you grab the head, maybe that rebound you're talking about. I get that part, but maybe the shoulder, your shoulder hits the guy in the nose or in the eye socket, the face, whatever. The key is to get him under the chin.
Right.
See, now look. You're imparting this wisdom on me. I feel like the next person that eats that stunner, the KO stunner, we might rename it. We'll talk about it.
You're more than welcome to rename it the KO stunner.
I would never go that far, but the next person who eats that stunner, kick to the diaphragm,
Right.
lock the jawbone right underneath that shoulder, and then lights out.
Yeah.
Well, see, I'm very glad we had this conversation. I kind of wish it wasn't happening on a podcast where a lot of the guys in the locker room have access to it now. But like you said, I feel like I'm cut from a different cloth. I don't think anybody would have the balls to,
By the same token, I mean, the effects are devastating, whether they know about it or not. Once it happens, they're going to be laying there and just basically a mess. You cover them for the 3
Yeah, once you lock that jawbone under the shoulder,
go.
there's nothing they can do.
That's right.
Well,
That's what it's all about.
What about? Then I have a question for you though. So, what about those times where you would, one match specifically with The Rock, where you would hit the stunner on him, and for some reason he kept kicking out, and then he hit the rock bottom on you, but then he hit the stunner on you.
You talk about a goddamn fluke. I mean, well, it's not even called a fluke because you're talking about a guy who used to play football at the University of Miami.
That's
down
right.
there played pro football. So you're not talking about some wallflower that's just hanging around on the fringe of the business
That's
trying
right.
to get in. You're talking about a full-blown 6'3", 265-pound, piece of electricity, the most electrifying man in sports.
Of Samoan descent.
Of Samoan
as well.
descent. So you talk about one tough stick of wood. That's hey, he's the biggest movie star in the world
That's right.
now. But inside the squared circle, one of the toughest opponents I've ever faced in my life. in big game situations, in big match situations, when all the chips are on the line and you're the main event of 3 WrestleManias and wherever else I wrestled him, that guy can summon up the damnedest courage, energy, perseverance. His recovery abilities are unparalleled. So the fact that I gave him the best that I could give him, and he was able to cook out and he was able to kick out, is just his testament to being the man that he is, and one tough-ass performer, one of the toughest I've ever faced in my life.
But those are a lot of accolades. Former football player, Samoan descent, multi-time WrestleMania main eventer. I feel like I just kind of described Roman Reigns at the same time. A man who also kicked out of my stunner. So I feel like... But had he given his lineage and the fact that he was a hell of a football player at Georgia Tech, still, had you known to rob the... If I knew the details...
Rob the lungs of oxygen, chain reaction through the vertebrates, to the AC joint in the shoulder, bam, bottom of the jaw,
so now,
lights out.
If I'm going along with your logic, which, of course, why wouldn't I? You're the master of the move. You know exactly... Well, you're... Would you say that the fact that you... In those matches with The Rock, you applied the kick to the gut, you secured the jaw, you hit the stunner, and he still managed to kick out. Would that make him tougher than Roman Reigns?
Oh, you on the spot. You know, that's a tough thing, because I think it's hard to compare generational wrestlers. You know, with it's a very close generation, but still, Roman is the next evolution. He's the next generation. So it's always like you take like a guy like Buddy Rogers or Bruno Sammartino. You know, could they have taken a stunner? Could they have kicked out? Yeah. So generational comparisons are tough. But you know, Roman Reigns is a tough guy. The bottom line, let's move on. I want to beat a dead horse here, but Roman, tough guy. If you face him again, if you execute it right, you know, I can smell a W on the end of it, and he ain't gonna kick out.
Now that I know all those details, I feel the same way.
A lot of times, there's been a couple of times in house shows all over the world. You know, a couple of times I hit a guy with that stunner. They piss their trunks. Yeah. A couple of them didn't crap themselves. I didn't even want to bring that. But that's how devastating that move can be.
I think Chris Jericho, before our unfortunate turn of events, had told me about maybe urinating on himself after taking a stunner from you at a live event.
You brought up Chris Jericho. I'm glad you did. I just DVR'd Monday Night Raw, and I watched right before I came up here and talked to you because I wanted to see what you'd been doing lately. I knew that you guys were kind of making around, was doing a lot of stuff. You kind of creating a lot of chaos. You were wrestling Roman Reigns. You were victorious.
I was.
He was suspended in a cage. All of a sudden, I go to Monday Night Raw, and this is, what was it, Carnival of Friendship? What was it called? Festival?
I believe he called it the Festival of Friendship.
The FOF, Festival of Friendship. And, man, he got the 6 or 8 girls bringing y'all to the ring, and here you come, dragging your little belt with you. He gets in the ring. He's got his hat on. Chris Jericho was so entertaining. And, of course, hell, I think he broke in right before I did or when I did, and he's withstood the test of time, and he's still cranking out excellent stuff. And in a show of complete friendship and appreciation for you, for some reason, he rubbed you the wrong way. And obviously, he'd been rubbing you the wrong way for several weeks because you already had the present ringside. What went wrong with the friendship with Chris Jericho?
Well, I don't want to go too deep in today here, but I will say that it had to happen, and it was a long time coming. You know, I feel like just on my end, regardless of why, you know, as far as the relationship Chris and I had, I feel like I've been, ever since I won the Universal Championship, I really haven't been myself. And I got here by being myself for 16 years. But once I took that title, I feel like I got sidetracked with Chris, and it was more about being entertaining and being funny and kind of popping each other and entertaining each other and just seeing how much fun we could have every Monday night, which is important in what we do. But there's also a side of what we do where you know, at one point you got to get serious and get your head where it needs to be. And I feel as Universal Champion, I really haven't done that yet. And now, you know, you got Goldberg coming after me. You got Brock Lesnar here every week almost now. And, you know, I went through Seth Rollins. I went through Roman Reigns. But there's a lot of other people coming for that title. And I think it was time to get rid of the distraction.
Distraction is the word of the day. Do you feel that you would still be the Universal Champion had you not had the assistance of one Chris Jericho in recent past?
I think so. Because like I said, I probably, without that distraction, I would have been in a different mindset, and I would have been at a different level as far as my in-ring competition and my in-ring skills. But
speculation, but confidence in that speculation.
I mean, I've always believed in myself quite a bit, and I have faith in my own abilities. But like I said, Chris was a distraction, and it just had to happen, and it happened. And if I may say so myself, what a moment.
It was
but
a moment.
I'm sure Chris would probably disagree.
Due to the road that I've traveled, I could appreciate the despicable acts displayed by yourself last Monday night.
It's all perspective, though. You call it despicable, I call it genius. You know?
Well, I mean, to the fans, it was despicable. And if I was going to sit there talking to Stone Cold Steve Austin, hey, a great job, a great day at the office. So I dug it.
Indeed, it was.
It was a well played out deal. I dug it the most. So you got Goldberg coming up on March 5th.
That's right.
Now, I understand that I think you were quoted in some – I get my Google alerts, and so your name pops up in a lot of them, but I think you told Goldberg or whatever that you weren't a fan of his.
I wasn't. No. I'll elaborate more on that matter tonight on Raw. Of course, I don't know when this podcast is going to be.
It'll be the night after Raw.
So as people will have heard me talk about on Raw, I was never a WCW guy. I was a WWF, WWE guy my entire life. When I was a kid, I discovered wrestling because of WrestleMania 11 when my dad got the VHS from a video store back home, and that was it. I heard of WCW. I knew of WCW. I never watched it. I didn't care. But, 97, 98, whatever it was, if I may, I was the biggest Stone Cold Steve Austin fan out there, and I'll say that, to anybody who claims otherwise. And to me, I would see this other guy on WCW wearing the black trunks, bald head, similar to goatee. I was like, this guy's just a cheap Stone Cold ripoff. Stone Cold Steve Austin in WWE is where it's at. And, I carried that through my entire life. I didn't like WCW. Even when the WCW guys started showing up on Raw because WWE had bought WCW, Booker T and all those guys, and, Saturn and Guerrero and Malenko and all those dudes, I had a hard time accepting them because they're not my WWE guys. Eventually, over time, I did.
Right.
But Goldberg really wasn't around enough for me to get that same sense of like, okay, yeah, now he's a WWE guy. Even his run that he had here, whatever it was, 11 months from the night after WrestleMania 19 all the way to WrestleMania 20, and then he left. To me, he was just the dude from WCW. Because at that point, I was still very much just a fan, and that's how I viewed him forever. Until he stepped through Gorilla that one night and went out there and talked about how he's glad to be back and he wants to show everybody he's a superhero. Well, that's nice, but now I'm a WWE guy, and to me, you're still an outsider. So that's why. And I've told him that I was never a Goldberg guy. I really wasn't. But I will say that it is quite surreal to now be in a main event of a pay-per-view with him. That's for sure.
But how do you feel going into that match coming up on March 5th, seeing the destruction that he put out on Brock Lesnar in one match and then the elimination there in the Royal Rumble?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of faith in myself. Like I said, the thing is, I know a lot of people probably would never give a guy like me much chance against a guy like Goldberg.
Why? Just some armchair quarterback
Sure.
say, hey, this guy looks like a Greek god,
Sure.
and Kevin Owens, not so much?
Yeah, but like I said, I don't. The key for me when I'm with Goldberg is to outlast him, because everyone knows the longer a Goldberg match goes, the more the advantage goes to his opponent. And, in a way, I feel like I've already outlasted him, because when it comes to, the ring or our industry, I grinded 15 years to get to WWE in gyms and church basements and bars and absolute dumps. And I loved every minute of it, all the way to get here. His first match was in a sold-out arena on national television in front of millions of people watching. He had it really good from the start. He reaped the benefits and rewards of this industry right away. And he lasted, 5 years before he decided to go home? I grinded it out for 17 years, dreaming of being a champion in WWE the whole time, and now I am. And I'm not going to let that go easily just because someone decided they wanted to come back and show their wife and their son that, hey, look, this is what I used to do, and I was pretty good at it. And he was. But, I'm just not willing to accept that. That's just
if
not
I
going to
was
happen.
to sit there and think about that match, I'm thinking the keys to victory for you are not to get caught up in the simplistic but highly effective offensive moveset of Bill Goldberg.
That's right.
As cerebral as you are in your approach to the game, I would think that you're on Red Alert 5, knowing what you got to watch for. Goldberg keys to win is not get caught up in the mind games you're going to pose at him, powder from the ring, confuse him, get him anxious.
But here's the thing. I don't think Goldberg has the abilities not to fall for those games.
That's what I'm saying, but that's going to be one of the keys. I think it's going to be a physical moveset versus a psychological
It's a very
warfare.
interesting. It's going to be a very interesting chess game for sure. And I feel like on the physical side of things, sure, he's Goldberg. He's run through everybody that was ever put in front of him. But as far as the mental side of the game, I feel I have a very strong advantage.
But notwithstanding the fact of the pop-up power bomb, everything else, the power bomb on the apron, whether you position, so there's certainly things on the physicality end that he needs to look
Absolutely.
for as well.
One of the
Let's
things
not
now.
throw your offense out the
No,
window.
I would never do that. But I will say this: at the Rumble, Roman Reigns, big guy, coming for that spear, boom, the knee,
Right.
and the not quite as effective as I wished stunner. But now Goldberg, spear, knee, kick to the gut, lock the.
Right.
Now I have the keys
Right.
to the kingdom. I think it's going to be a bad night for Goldberg at Fastlane.
Let's move forward the road to WrestleMania. You got to get past March 5th.
Sure.
Road to WrestleMania. This will be your how many WrestleMania you have participated in?
My second one.
Really?
Yep. First one I went to was WrestleMania 31 as part of the company, but I was just in NXT, so I just watched from the sidelines. 32 last year was my first one. I defended the Intercontinental title in the ladder match. Of course, I ended up walking out without the title, but that's another story for another time. I actually encountered you on the way up to the gorilla position right before that match. And I don't know if you remember what I told you, but I told you without your advice in that airport like a decade before that, I wouldn't be there right now. So
What did you think when you walked out in front of 100,000 people in WrestleMania 32 in Dallas, Texas?
that was
Pretty awesome.
it was. I told my friends later that all these guys that have seen me work to get to that moment and were watching back home and they were texting me and asking how it felt, and all I could keep saying to all of them was, I really cannot put it into words. Like if my career ended the next day, I think I'd be okay with that because it was there's really something incredible that comes with hearing 100,000 people. So in essence, because of the nature of our business and what I'm doing and what I'm supposed to be doing and the kind of reaction I'm supposed to emote in people, hearing 100,000 people pop shouldn't bring me as much satisfaction as it did. But man, it really did. It was just hearing the excitement of, oh man, this guy's coming out now. We're about to see this ladder match and it's going to be kick-ass and it's kicking off WrestleMania. And like, if you can't be last, you want to be first. You know what I mean? Like that's always how I felt. If I can't, close off a show, I want to start it off as good as I can. It was all those elements together, and being in the ring with Sami Zayn after all the time we put in trying to get there. And even being in the ring with, Stardust, Cody Rhodes, after, he and I got very close over the short period of time we spent together in this company. And, I got to spend, about 10 or 11 months sitting under Dusty's learning tree at NXT. And I got pretty close to Dusty during those times. And I know, like, he would talk to Cody about me. And those are things I found out, after Dusty passed. Cody would tell me, Dusty would say this about you, Dusty would say that about you. So I know you're one of the good guys. And Cody and I got close like that. So sharing that moment, and not even just that, but Sin Cara, I know had his son in the crowd, and it was the first time Sin Cara was really featured in a big, an actual big match at WrestleMania. And just getting to share those moments with those guys, it just made for such a special night above even, hearing 100,000 people going crazy for the match. It just everything together, my family, my wife, my kids, my parents being there, it just made for such an incredible experience.
What is your approach to a big event like that, you wrestle on pay-per-views every month. They don't call them pay-per-views anymore. It's on the WWE Network, which is $9.99 by subscription. Get it. But a big event. You've been to 31. You see the table set. You're watching the guys go out there do their things. You've been in the business 16, 18 years, whatever it is. All of a sudden, you're 32, 100,000. People pop when you come out. Your prep. Are you nervous when you go out? Are you full of confidence? Or are you just chomping at the bit just to get started, to just elicit a response and go accordingly and tell that story?
Well, my wife asked me this just about 2 weeks ago if I still get nervous before I go out. And I honestly, I can't say I'm nervous because I don't think I am. There's butterflies, but it's not nervous. It's almost excitement, and I just want to get out there and do it. But I really do have a lot of faith in my abilities, and I think I'm here because I belong here, and I belong at the top of the cards, and I belong in the main events, and I belong at WrestleMania. And I felt that way from the moment I stepped foot on in the ring on Raw with John Cena that first night. You starting off with John Cena is a pretty crazy task.
Yeah.
I felt right at home because I put in those 15 years before to get me to that point. And, I had a couple months in NXT that really helped me just kind of get acclimated to the WWE environment. So when I stepped foot in the ring with John on Raw, just like when I stepped foot at WrestleMania for the first time or anywhere else or main event at the first pay-per-view or won the Universal title, I was never nervous. I was very excited, but I was always confident. And I think that's a big part of being successful in what we do too is if you don't think you belong where you are, those people can tell.
And I don't think, along with what you're saying, I don't think you're as loose or as free as you need to be in the ring, to be in the moment, to not think. Because if you're thinking, you're stinking.
If you're a ball of nerves out there, you're going to miss out on opportunities or moments that you could create that just happen and you don't notice them because you're too worried about just, you know what I mean? Am I doing the right thing? The right thing will come to you. If you're ready for it.
Yeah, instinctively. But I think that's one of the keys to your success here. Obviously, you're a grade A talent, but it's all the years spent on the indie circuit, learning over and over and over again, the layers, the years, the experience, like I got when I was here. I came to WWF 7.5, almost 8 years in the business. I get an opportunity. It's not the greatest gimmick in the world, but I'm ready to go. I'm laying my stuff in.
I was all about the ringmaster, by the way. I know, I've heard you say that before. It wasn't the greatest.
What did you dig about the gimmick? There was nothing to dig about it.
I don't know.
Boring.
I think that's what I dug. You say it was boring. To me, it was straightforward. Like I've said this before. I think they're working on a DVD of me. WWE is, and I think it's coming out in June or July. But I got to see a rough draft of it, and in it I say, I've heard Steve Austin talk about how the ringmaster sucked. I was all in right away. I think because at that time especially, everybody else was so extravagant and elaborate. You were the complete opposite. I think that's what drew me to you, is you were, I guess, I was already dreaming of becoming a WWE superstar. To me, I could see myself as being more like you than being like all these other extravagant characters.
And I can see your point there. To go back to the ringmaster thing, and I love Ted DiBiase as my manager. I didn't like him as my manager. He's one of my favorite pro wrestlers, so no knock against Ted, but I needed to be by myself. Right. But the thing, when I came through the doors here and they didn't have any plans for me, hell, they just changed my tights to green. I trash canned those. After about 3 episodes, went back to black. And I said, hey, man, what kind of boots should I wear? And they said, no, just wear the boots you're wearing in WCW. Those were Hollywood blonde boots, white with the black star. And I'm thinking, boy, they really got plans for me here. They repackage everybody. And they brought in Mark Henry, Vader, Johnny B. Bad, Cactus Jack. Everybody was on push except for me. I was on a holding pattern. I was just a mechanic. But here's the thing. When I got in the ring, I was very physical. You couldn't see through anything that I was doing. So people, it's like, man, George Animal Steel just passed away. Yeah. I was so sad to hear about that. He was so good to me. Blackjack Lanza, Jerry Briscoe, Sarge, Hall of Famer. Those guys would come up to me. And even then, before I was stone cold, they could see down the road. I couldn't. I was in the battle. But I wasn't trying to work no crowd. I was getting my stuff over in the ring. And it was very physical, and it was snug. You couldn't see through nothing, and it was violent. Mm-hmm. And those guys would come to me and they said, Steve, he goes, all of them, they said, you're going to get over. They said, it's going to take you longer to get over, but when you do get over, you'll always stay over. And you come up with Stone Cold thing was the icing on the cake. So it was the genesis. It was a foot in the door, like I always say. It was a great opportunity to come into the WWF. This is a major league. So not to keep continuing on about me, but everything from then on just kind of lined up for me with the King of the Ring win, 316, Stone Cold sets on all that other stuff. So it was just a heavy-duty work style with, the right gimmick.
Right.
And that's what worked for me.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you first came here? You come off the NXT roster, you're in the system. What was your main concern going out just as far as creating a persona, work style? Did you just remain who you were from the indies scene? What was your MO to get over and strike a nerve with the people?
Well, so when I got to NXT, I was really, I had no idea what or who I would be, really. I got signed, but I was never given an indication of what the plans were, if there were plans. As a matter of fact, when I got signed, Canyon Seaman, who's Triple H's kind of right-hand man with the recruiting talent, called me and said, well, we're going to hire you, but I was told to let you know not to get your hopes up as far as Raw and SmackDown goes, because, as you're aware, you're maybe not somebody who Vince McMahon would gravitate towards, but you're going to get your chance in NXT like everyone else. And my exact words back to him were, well, I look forward to the challenge. And he said, well, I thought that's what you'd say. And then I got to NXT, and those words were, always kind of resounding in my head, like, don't get your hopes up, don't get your hopes up. But I didn't know who I would be. I had singlets made because I figured, well, WWE, you got to look nice and clean, and that wasn't me. That was never me. And then, I've told that story before, but one time at the Performance Center when we're getting ready to do these ID shoots, which is just like us standing in the ring with them kind of just shooting around us and getting some footage for like the entrance video and whatnot. Enzo Amore, at that point, I didn't know I didn't know my name. I didn't know what my character would be. I didn't know nothing. Enzo Amore saw me in my singlet. Was like, well, what is that? That's not you, Until you're told otherwise, just be you. So I'm like, oh, all right. So I put on some shorts. I cut off the sleeves of the T-shirt I had on at the moment, and I turned it inside out because it was a Guns N' Roses T-shirt, which obviously I couldn't wear for that stuff. But Finn Balor at the time was paint. The demon stuff that he does. He had some body paint that he was using, so I splattered some paint. I splattered the word "fight" on the shirt, just so it looked like something. And then I went and did the ID shoots, and Chris Chambers, who was kind of overseeing the whole thing, looked at me and said, oh, that kind of looks cool. That's different. I'm like, and that right away, and I've never gotten the chance to tell Chris that, but that gave me such a confidence boost, because I was walking into an entire new environment, a new place, and as confident as I've always been with my abilities, at that point I had no idea what they expected of me. And it was always my dream to work for WWE, so I was really... I'd say those ID shoots that day actually was probably the most nervous I've been in my WWE run, because I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. When he said, that looks different, that's cool, it gave me such a confidence boost, and I'm really thankful for Chris for that. It was years ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday. So then we did the ID shoots, and I fully expected a week later to get a call from whoever, Bill DeMott, who was running the Performance Center at the time, or maybe even Triple H, saying, well, what the hell were you wearing? But I didn't. In fact, I got a call later saying, hey, so I'm with the creative department, and we're working on your look. You want to see what we've got? And when they sent it through, I was wearing shorts and a cut-off T-shirt. And I'm like, man, that's me, So that's when I realized I got here because of who I was, and they want me to be me. And I've always stayed true to that. Of course, there's, little aspects of who I am that I've played up at different times. And, like the last few months, I've been more about being entertaining and this and that, but I feel like I've shown all kinds of shades of my character from the time I showed up with Cena to now, whether it's be a badass who can fight and won't give up, to being, a more entertaining character, to being, maybe somebody who's not as courageous as he should be. But I feel like I can make all those work. So I've always stayed with the same base, which is myself, and then I just turn up different aspects when it's time, and I think it's been working out pretty good.
That was a great piece of advice that Enzo Amore gave you. He said, hey, until they decide to tell you who you are, just be yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's who I was, just turned up. It took me a while to find that.
I mean, I've heard you say that in interviews countless times, too. You're just you with the volume turned up. And, I kind of always felt that way. That's what I was in Ring of Honor. That's what I was in PWG. That's what I was on the Indies for years. And when I got here, I just didn't know if that's what they wanted. Once I got the feeling that is what they wanted, I went in head first and never looked back,
What were your thoughts then when, you hear that you're not really a guy that Vince looks for? Vince is a body guy. I think that's what you're referring to.
I guess that's what they were referring to,
right.
Obviously. The point is, now it's a very different environment and a very different territory, if I may borrow the expression. That we really do have guys of all sizes, all shapes, all there's the cruiserweights, there's all like everything's really changed in the last 2 years, I feel. But at that time, it still wasn't this way. There had already been guys that, much like myself, were very successful, even though they weren't the kind of guys that you would expect Vince to be on board with, like Daniel Bryan. He was, he probably deserves a lot of credit for people like myself and Sami Zayn and Samoa Joe being here, because he really broke down, the barriers, the almost like the fake barriers that people were putting, putting up.
Perception.
Yeah, the perception, exactly. He really changed the perception, yes. But when I got that, don't get your hopes up, what I told Canyon was really how I felt. Like, I'm up to the challenge. And I remember...
That put a chip on your shoulder?
It really didn't. Because, I
you knew you were confident in your ability.
Yeah, up until that moment when, the only thing that was kind of scary was, I don't know what my name's going to be. I don't know what they're going to... what if they try to put me in this extravagant character? Like, I feel like I could make everything work, but it's really not me. I'd be a lot more successful being who I am. And then once I got word of that, I really felt like I know exactly who I am. I know what works for me. And I can apply that to WWE just like I have on the Indies. I remember telling my wife, we moved to Florida in August of 2014. My son started school like a week later. So we moved him. He did kindergarten in Montreal. Then his first grade was in Florida, which is a big deal because in Canada, in Montreal, school is in French. Obviously in Florida, it's not. It's in English. And Owen, for some reason, wouldn't be okay. He didn't want to speak to me in French at home. He doesn't like it. He just doesn't like it. If I speak to him in French, he gets very uncomfortable. He's only comfortable talking in French with my mom and my dad because that's always what he's done, But then he was going to school in French, so we started to pick it up pretty good. But then we moved to Florida. I went to Florida for a year, but we didn't know that at the time. We didn't know. Like, at that time, NXT, you could be in NXT for years, So, however long I'd stay in NXT, we'd be living in Florida, which meant Owen would be less and less around the French language, which probably meant he would lose his understanding and his ability to use it. So my wife was always telling me, and not just that, but obviously he would make friends, If we're in Florida for 2-3 years, it doesn't feel right moving back to Montreal once you get called up or whatever, because then, we're asking him to leave his friends behind. He'll come back to a French school, a French environment, and that's going to be very difficult. And I told my wife, I'm like, listen, once because I really didn't want to stay in Florida. I wanted to move back home as soon as possible because I'm close to my parents. She's close to her parents. I wanted my parents to enjoy their grandkids. I wasn't okay with living in Florida for an extended period. So I don't know what made me say this, but I told her once I'm on NXT television, I'll be on the main roster in 6 months and we can move back home. And as much as she loves me, as much as she believes in me, she was always the one to say, when a lot of people would tell me you'll never get to WWE, or if you do, you'll never be successful, she always told me they weren't right and I would. As much as she loved me and believed in me, she still said, well, guys stay in NXT for years. Like, it's a nice thought, but come on. But then if you do the math, I started in NXT on December 11th, and May 18, I showed up on Raw and I was called up. That's 6 months. So it came true. So that's why when Triple H told me, you're getting called up, my first, as incredible as I felt and as happy as I was, my first question was, can I move back to Canada? And I remember it probably took him by surprise a little that's the one question I had after that news. But he said, yeah, sure. So then I called my wife. I'm like, hey, guess what? We're moving back home. So Owen only had to, spend a year away from the French school, and then he went right back in and picked everything back up, and now everything's good. So.
Okay, I think I know the answer to this question based on what I'm hearing, but how did Kevin Owens come about? Because you were Kevin Steen on the indie scene.
Yeah, at that time, when I got signed, now it's obviously changed again, but getting to keep your name wasn't a thing. Everybody was, changing their names, and we went back and forth on what name we could use for a little while until eventually Triple H, I had suggested Owens something. Triple H said, well, what about Owens as a last name? Because obviously you're fond of Owen Hart, and you named your son after Owen Hart, and that name means something to you. I'm like, yeah, I like Owens as a last name for sure. Then he goes, well, what about Kevin Owens? You got the KO thing.
Right.
It sounds good. And I was like, and even back then, just keeping your first name was unheard of, right. I remember. So I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. He's like, all right, let me see with the legal department. And sure enough, about a week later, I got the word that was the name, which was great. And it led to a pretty funny moment with Dusty, actually, because me and Dusty had talked about what my name would be and stuff like that. So I got to the Performance Center, and somehow it had leaked online that my name was now Kevin Owens. Even though I hadn't started in NXT, there were no plans for me to start in NXT anytime soon on TV or anything. But for some reason, people knew Kevin Steen is now Kevin Owens. So I walked in, and I remember I forgot my key card that day, so I had to walk in through the front instead of the back. So I rang, and Dusty opened the door for me because he was right in the lobby. So as I'm walking with him towards where the ring area is, he goes, Kevin Owens, huh? I'm like, yep. You like it? And he goes, nope. And as he keeps walking to his office, I'm like kind of laughing. He goes, who thought of it? And I go, Hunter. And he goes, I love it. And it just, that's Dusty. Really popped me. Hey. Nope. I love it. So it was pretty good.
No, it worked out good, though, because you got the Owen part in there, Owens.
Yeah.
But also, just from a merchandising stand-up, KO, knockout, I mean, there are just so many ways you can go with that.
Yeah. I mean, it just, I don't know. KO sounds, it's cool.
Yeah.
KO. It sounds good. I like it. And obviously, it's funny because before I got there was Cassius Ohno in NXT. And then he got released. I came in, I took the KO, and now he's back. So we've got KO and KO going. He's in NXT for now, but who knows what's going to happen in the future? Might have to battle over the initials there.
The seniority is going to rule that decision. Hey, tell me a Dusty story. After we go back over, one time we was at an airport. You saw me, and was you traveling with Sammy that day?
Yes.
And you said, hey, man, you got any advice for me? I said, hey, man, learn how to cut a promo.
Yes.
Them damn Hurricanranas will kill you, whatever I told you. And obviously, maybe that got you thinking, you're an excellent talker. Were you always an excellent talker?
I mean, I don't want to bestow that honor upon myself, but I think, and I'm giving you a lot of credit, but it really is.
No.
The moment you said, but the moment, so.
Because I'm getting this back to Dusty is where I'm going.
Yeah.
But.
So I would always talk a lot, but especially right before I met you in 2003, 2004, I had a pretty strong French accent still because French is my first language. But once you told me to, learn to cut a promo, the exact words were never stop running your mouth. I started applying that immediately, and not just on the microphone, like during my matches, and you see it. It's a big part of who I am, and it was a big part of who I was on the independents as well. So I never lost that. But as far as talking on the microphone, I guess I was always apt to doing it. I was good enough that it was always something that people would praise me for. But I think when I got to NXT, we would get to work with Dusty in the promo class. That he would call it communication skills. But really, it was just him trying to teach how to cut a promo. And the advice he had for me through those 10 months that I spent there was invaluable on how to communicate. Because there's a difference between cutting a good promo and also, like, you can cut the best promo in the world, but if the people aren't listening to you, it means nothing.
Absolutely.
So Dusty was the king of finding ways and teaching you ways on how to make people listen. And then you could cut the great promo. Because if you don't make them listen first, you're talking at nothing, But yeah, Dusty was instrumental in me learning that, and just also, once I figured out that, I can be who I am, Dusty was kind of, he wasn't even trying to do it, but one of the things I learned from Dusty the most was I would watch him be himself all the time. And he would buck the system, and he was just not what You know, he wasn't walking the straight line that everybody else does, and it was okay. He taught me that that's okay. And that's a very valuable lesson here.
But the thing I would like to, I used to like to watch about Dusty was just his movements, his cadence, his pauses, and his facials. Just watching him tell a story, because he was the ultimate storyteller.
Absolutely.
And you go back to the Hard Times promos, Hard Times Blues, all the other stuff. When he was thanking the people, I mean, he knew how to affect those people and draw them, and pull them into the heartstrings.
My hand is touching your hand.
Yeah.
That line will always, it's just so incredible.
But so many people, sometimes I think on promos, and we'll go home here pretty quick because I know you got a long day here, Monday Night Raw. It's early in the day. You got to find out what you're doing. But just in a promo, what I've seen, so many people still try to do, they just try to be like a great speaker or great orator.
Yeah.
And it's not all about that.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you can have the most simple line in the world, the most simple promo, but it's the salt and pepper or the mustard, if you will, that you put on those words and how you phrase them that resonates with someone. Because we could have 5 people, 10 people go out there to the same crowd and say the same things and see the different way in which they deliver that message.
Yeah,
it can be very simple.
Very often it's not about what you say.
How you say it.
Yeah, I hate to give him credit for anything, but a few months ago, when Sami Zayn was in the midst of his war with Braun Strowman, I remember he showed up on Raw when Braun was asking for more competition, and here comes Sami, who nobody would expect to do that. Backstage after the encounter, one of the interviewers went up to Sami and said, "Why did you out there with Braun Strowman? Why, what made you do that?" And all he said was, "Because no one else would." That's all he said. And that, like I said, I hate to give him credit, but it gave me goosebumps.
Right.
And it's because of how he said it. And it wasn't what he said, because he said nothing, because no one else would. But the way he said it, the way it was delivered, and what had just happened, like, it's just, whoa, it just caught me. But enough about Sami.
It spoke to, enough about Sami. But as a person in the business, it spoke of his moral fiber. And hey, nobody else would.
He said so much with
so little.
Barely.
And in doing so, that's you could understand without miming. It says a million things about him.
Yeah,
he's got the guts to go out there and do it. All right, we're going to shut this thing down on Twitter. I guess. I'm glad we brought up Twitter because I sent out a tweet one time that says, I guess it was right after you delivered the ill-fated stunner to Roman Reigns. I guess I'm going to have to teach Kevin Owens how to deliver a GD Stone Cold Stunner. And then you said, I think, look me up, I'm not a hard guy to find, I've got the universal title. Words to that effect.
Yes, something like that. It happens, it can happen anytime you want in the 2K17 video game. People could pick you, they can pick me and make it happen. But I feel like, unless it happens in real life, I mean, I'm here every Monday night, and
I'm retired.
Some Sundays.
To make a match, but I just wanted to address those comments because we're sitting in such
we're
a
sitting in a room with Christmas lights and a ladder and a lamp and a mirror. Yeah,
all the settings are here. But 2K Sports set up this interview.
They did.
I got a chance to come down here. I was going to hang out at 317 Gimmick Street. I'm remodeling my house.
Are you?
I'm renting a house next door.
Wow.
How lucky is that?
Yeah.
So my house is in the shambles, and it's hard to podcast in there because they're beating the hell out of my house, put a bunch of stuff, and it's going to be really cool. You have to come by when it gets done.
I'd love to.
But I got a chance to come down here from 2K Sports. I don't sit around my house a whole lot and play video games, but when I was on the cover of 2K16 last year and they come out with 2K17 this year, the games continue to get cooler and cooler. And yes, at your own crib, you can be Kevin Owens or you can be a Hall of Famer and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Maybe bring your buddy over to be Kevin Owens, and y'all can go head to head and see who comes out on top. I would like to think that the Stone Cold Steve Austin playable character would be way too smart for the shenanigans, the mind games that your character in the video game would try to play. And I dare say that I would be defensive-minded enough to stay out of your tremendous offensive moveset.
Well, look, mind games were always something you were very good at as well, you know? So the video games can tell a story, but I know you're retired, you're not looking to set up a match or anything, but I do think a Stone Cold Stunner tutorial on Monday Night Raw would be very interesting to see, you know? Because you've told me what the semantics are. There's, never a better way to learn than to show. So maybe we get a couple, stunt dummies, aka local extras, on a certain Monday night, and we see what happens. But listen, the video game is a great place to start, and I'd love to see people put Steve Austin on one side, Kevin Owens on the other side, and tell us, how the match worked out.
I wonder on the video game, can you take a powder?
I believe I can.
That is a ploy which is so underused, and you're smart enough to use the powder.
Oh, yeah. It's right there.
God dang, so many people miss out on that. It's like, God, it's such a moment when it's done right.
I love taking a powder in the ring. I love taking a powder when things get a little too crazy at home. I take a powder to the bathroom, and what are you doing in there? Give me a time. Hey, taking a powder is extremely underrated. Absolutely.
Extremely, well...
and underused.
Underutilized.
Yeah, well, now it's mine. And then, if the guys are listening.
All the boys do.
Yeah.
They start taking the powder now. Kevin Owens, it's been good talking to you. On Twitter, you are?
Fight Owens Fight.
Fight Owens Fight.
You're well aware. I mean, you sent out that tweet. Come on.
Oh, I've been hearing.
I'm considering changing. I'm considering changing it to Stun Owens Stun soon.
The plagiarism, the theft, the rip-offs continue here on the podcast. So you're semi-famous for trolling people on Twitter.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Well, I feel like... so first of all, I never go after people unprovoked. I do it a lot less now because it became a lot less fun once people got a lot more stupid in the world, for various reasons. But... if somebody comes after me or my family or somebody I like, and they make a point of tagging me in the tweet so that I can see it, I will do my research. I'll go on their account. I'll look at their pictures. I'll look at their tweets. And then if I find some ammunition to expose to the world how stupid that person is, I might dabble. And, it's just something I do when I have too much time on my hands, which, these days I really don't have much free time. So like I said, I do it a lot less. But I feel like if you're big enough to start harassing somebody on Twitter, you should be big enough to take it when it comes at you, I'm not one to let that stuff down.
I had a hell of an answer for the tweets you sent, and I was just about to send it. I said, you know what? If I hit the send button, I'm playing right into this guy's game. I deleted the tweet, and I just said, Uncle, I'm going to leave it as it was.
Well, no, I need to know what it is.
No. I'll tell you after
the tweet shall remain the tweet shall remain nameless.
This will remain unnamed, just like all the victims in the podcast. KO, it's good talking to you. Good luck on your match on March 5th. Good luck on your road to WrestleMania.
Thank you.
I'm proud of all the success you've had. You continue to kick ass, and you come into the WWE with a mission to get on top. You're on top. Continued success.
Thanks a lot, Steve. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off in the sunset. Before I do that, I want to thank my guest today, WWE Universal Champion KO Kevin Owens, spending some time with me in a little bitty-ass cubicle of a room as I was dropping knowledge about how to use a Stone Cold Stunner. A great guy. I wish you all the best. Good luck on your March 5th match, WWE Fastlane against Goldberg. We'll give you guys something to watch. And my illustrious producer, Stacy, picked out this barn burner of a match. She found it on YouTube, and I remember watching this match from a year ago. If you get on YouTube, just Google full match Kevin Owens versus Dolph Ziggler Intercontinental title match, WWE Fastlane 2016. It was a pretty damn good match, if I do recall. And Dolph Ziggler, hellacious worker in his own right. So two guys out there that can work their ass off. Check that match out. Hey, but can he defend the title again against the almighty Bill Goldberg coming up at this year's Fastlane? We're going to find out on March 5th. Hey, man, and speaking with KO about the 2K17 video game, Hell, I forgot to get into any kind of details about what's all on that game, but some of the things that are in the video game, the WWE 2K17 Hall of Fame Showcase. This is additional downloadable content that features talent and matches from 2016's Hall of Fame class. You can play as all of these guys, and this bullet below that I'm fixing to read is most near and dear to me. It includes the fabulous Freebirds, Buddy Roberts and Michael P.S. Hayes versus Kerry and Kevin Von Erich. This is from World Class Championship Wrestling in 1986. Now, this is the first time that the Freebirds, the Von Erichs, WCCW, and that famous arena in Dallas, the Sportatorium, have ever been featured in a WWE video game series. Got Cactus Jack and Diamond Dallas Page versus the fabulous Freebirds, Jimmy Garvin and Michael P.S. Hayes. From WCW Saturday Night 1992, Ivory versus Jacqueline, SmackDown 2000, Sting, Gold and Black Tights versus Ric Flair, Clash of Champions 1988, and on and on and on. Anyway, thank you, 2K, for helping me set this interview up with Kevin Owens. Hey, man, here's an announcement for you. I just got off the phone with Ryan Barkin down there at Pro Wrestling Tees. We are releasing, 8 or 9 brand new Broken Skull Ranch T-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin or BrokenSkullRanch.com. 8 or 9 of the shirts that I wore on this past season of the toughest show on television, Steve Austin's Broken Skull Challenge. Badass designs. I know a lot of people out there collecting these damn things, so here's 8 or 9 different ones that I wore on the show. And hopefully we get picked up for another year, and, Broken Skull Challenge will be back again. I'm still waiting to hear. New shirts are now at ProWrestlingTees.com. And if you're looking for a damn good beer to drink, check out my IPA. It's available at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in California. It's called Steve Austin's Broken Skull IPA, or you can order it from InsideTheCellar.com if you live in a state that they ship to. And you can find everything at BrokenSkullRanch.com, including the Cold Steel Broken Skull knife. I got to say one more thank you to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show. That's how I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. And you can find all my sponsors at podcast1.com. Just click on the Killer Deals button at the top of the page, and then click on the Steve Austin Show banner. And just a reminder that the Steve Austin Show is also a participant in the Amazon Associates Program, an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for me to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com. You can link to Amazon at podcast1.com by clicking on the Killer Deals button at the top of the page. And coming up on Thursday, I'm talking to the one and only, the wily, old-school vet who has trained a bunch of damn people who have been successful in their wrestling careers, the one and only Rip Rogers. We're talking old school, we're talking pro wrestling, talking do's and don'ts, and all kinds of wrestling psychology and things in the vein of pro wrestling. It's a good time talking to Rip. I think you'll dig this conversation. And the 60-second AP News headlines are coming up next. Until then, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
I want to say thank you to Drop Stop, one of the great sponsors of this show. Drop Stop is the original patented seat gap filler, as seen on TV Shark Tank. Get the original Drop Stop at buydropstop.com and use code STEVE for 2 free gifts and free shipping. Stay tuned for the latest AP News headlines from Podcast One right after this.
The Angry President. I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. We've learned that President Trump was seething when he fired FBI Director James Comey. He felt Comey let the FBI's Russia investigation play out in the press, we're told. Former Trump campaign advisor Roger Stone tells the Today Show this morning the Trump presidential campaign did not collude with Moscow.
The idea of Russian collusion is a canard. It's a falsehood.
Earlier on the Today Show, White House Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders was asked about a line in the president's termination letter to Comey that read, "I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation." Some have called that statement into question. Sanders was asked about it.
Look, I'm not sure on the reasoning behind that exact part being in there, but I do know I spoke to the president directly, and he said that those moments and conversations did take place.
I'm Rita Foley.